Welcome to part 3 of 100 mark making ideas anyone can do. In this video, I have 25 more mark making ideas you can try. That's on top of the 50 techniques I already shared in parts 1 and 2. Watch those for even more ideas. Hi, I'm Jackie Hernandez, author of the Mark Making Starter Kit. I'm currently doing a 100-day project to explore mixed media mark making techniques. I'm working in these 2 scrappy art journals I made in a previous video. The links to all the videos in this series, the scrappy art journal tutorial, and all the supplies I use are in the video description below. I hope these ideas inspire you to do some mark making experiments. You may want to save this video for future reference. Number 51, stylus dots. Use a ball stylus to make ink dots. Dip the stylus in ink and stamp it on the paper. Each time you stamp the stylus, the dot will get slightly smaller. Reload when the ink runs out. Number 52, inky loops. Use a cotton swab or a small flat brush with ink like this India ink to paint connecting loops across the page. Vary the size of the loops for interest. A cotton swab holds a lot of ink and keeps the stroke width uniform. Number 53, textured brush marks. Place a piece of punchinella or a stencil with small openings over your page, and then use a large flat brush to paint big brush marks over the stencil. When you remove the stencil, you'll reveal the textured pattern inside the brush marks. Number 54, baking paper scraping. Apply a thick layer of paint to a piece of baking paper. Choose a paint color that contrasts with the background. While the paint is wet on the baking paper, flip it over onto your background. Use a tool like this cocktail fork to scrape into the baking paper. It will push away the paint underneath. Peel off the baking paper while the paint is still wet. Number 55, cap stamping. Instead of dipping a bottle cap in paint, use an acrylic marker to color the rim of the cap and then stamp it on the paper. Recolor the cap for each stamp. Using acrylic markers makes it easy to use multiple colors. Number 56, cork stamping. Find a wine cork with an interesting texture on the end. This is a synthetic cork with a grid-like pattern on the end. Use it to stamp with acrylic paint. I used unbleached titanium to stamp over this blue netting pattern. Number 57, stencil rubbing. Place a piece of punchinella or a stencil with small openings under the page. Then use a wax crayon on its edge to rub over the page. I used a Neocolor 1 crayon to create a white rubbing over this multicolor page. Number 58, shape sampler. Choose one shape and then use it to draw patterns in as many ways as you can think of. On this page, I used hexagons and came up with 15 different patterns. This is an amazing exercise to discover new pattern ideas. If you have trouble coming up with pattern ideas, check out my ebook, The Mark Making Starter Kit. It has 16 exercises to help you find your favorite marks and develop mark making patterns like this. Number 59, rubber band roller. Loop a large rubber band around a highlighter or a marker barrel. Paint acrylic paint on part of the page and then leave the rest unpainted. Roll the rubber band roller through the wet paint and continue rolling it onto the unpainted portion. With this technique, you get the negative and the positive version of the same design. Number 60, line rubbing. Use a piece of ribbed shelf liner as a texture plate. Place the shelf liner underneath your page and then use a wax crayon on its side to rub over the page, creating instant stripes. Number 61, stencil sanding. I have seen this technique done on magazine pages and wanted to try it with paper painted with acrylic paint. You place a stencil under the paper and then use a fine grit sandpaper to sand the page, which transfers the stencil design. A sanding block may be easier to use. Beware this gets dusty. Wear a dust mask and work in a well-ventilated area. Number 62, accent sanding. Sanding large areas of painted paper was time-consuming, so I tried the sanding technique again, putting a stencil underneath the page and using sandpaper, but just on smaller accent areas. I used the sanding technique to add this circular pattern in just the solid areas of paint on this page. Number 63, cotton swab marks. Use a cotton swab dipped in ink like this India ink to paint marks. The cotton swab holds a lot of ink and it makes uniform strokes with a rounded end. This paper did not take the ink well. It feathered and it bled through the paper. So make sure to test your ink and your paper combination before using them together. Number 64, spool stamping. Use a large wooden spool as a stamp. You can buy blank spools like this at the craft store. Instead of making solid donut shapes, stamping with acrylic paint on a wooden spool creates incredible textures inside the marks. On Instagram, people said this white on black combo reminded them of moons. Number 65, bubble wrap. Brush acrylic paint right over the bubbles and then stamp them onto the paper. Bubble wrap comes in lots of different sizes and shapes. On this page, I used a miniature bubble wrap, normal size bubble wrap, and one with jumbo bubbles, which is my personal favorite. These bubble wraps are also great to save and use on the gel plate. Number 66, calming marks. Use a flat brush and ink to paint a calming, repetitive pattern across the page. On this busy, ink-splattered page, I painted neat rows of square marks. It calmed me and the page. Number 67, rubber band X's. Use the same rubber band roller from idea number 59, but use it like a stamp instead of a roller. Use a makeup sponge to apply the paint just to the sections of the rubber band that you want to stamp onto the paper. I stamped the side of my roller where the rubber band crossed over itself, creating these rows of X's. This color is cobalt blue hue. Number 68, collagraph rubbing. I made this collagraph texture plate from food packaging. I punched 1-inch circles from the cardboard and glued them to the backing cardboard. You can place this under your page as a texture plate and then use a wax crayon on its side to rub over the page. It's interesting because you get a different texture inside the circles than you do on the edges of the circles, which pick up more of the wax from the crayon. Number 69, collagraph resist. I used the scraps from punching out the circles to make the other collagraph plate to make this texture plate. On this one, the circles are indented instead of raised. I put this behind the page and then used a white crayon to rub over this collagraph to create a resist. I painted the page with India ink and the crayon rubbing resisted the ink, leaving the pattern behind. Number 70, pattern stripes. Place a piece of punchinella or a stencil with small, tightly packed openings over the page. Then use a large flat brush and acrylic paint to paint stripes over the stencil. Remove the stencil to reveal the patterned stripes. Number 71, arch sampler. Create a sampler of mark-making patterns inside a shape. I began my pattern by making dots around this arched shape. Then I made more marks inside of these two arches. This is a fun way to create a pattern with a lot of variety. This is one of the exercises I teach inside the Mark Making Starter Kit. You can check that out at the link below the video. Number 72, brush handle stamping. Use the end of an angled brush handle and an ink pad to stamp oval shapes. Press the brush handle on the ink pad to reload it after each stamp. Make sure the full angled edge of the brush makes contact with the paper to get the full oval shape. Number 73, plaster and sgraffito. Use a palette knife to scrape acrylic paint onto the page, covering parts of the background. Try holding the palette knife parallel to the page to get these broken marks. Use the handle of a brush to scratch into or write into the wet paint. This plaster and sgraffito combo on a vintage book page creates a really cool old world look. Number 74, negative space. Color in the negative space around shapes to create marks. Start by outlining the shapes that you want to create and then fill in the negative space around them with solid color. Optionally, add more marks on top of the new solid background. I used a white acrylic marker to add these small dots. Number 75, ruling pen. Use a ruling pen and gold ink to draw straight lines. I drew a starburst pattern using this circular grid background as a guide. You can use ink, watercolor, or fluid paint in a ruling pen. The width of the line is adjustable with this little dial on the side of the ruling pen. For more mark making ideas, check out my mark making playlist.